What up, though?
Welcome to Woman Crush Every Day, where we discuss queer media, especially when it is black and especially when it is woman. I'm your host, Tang B, aka Sean B. Scribe.
And I'm your host, Allison, aka Al Woo.
And today, we're going to talk about Rue from Euphoria.
Yes.
But first,
subscribe.
Please.
I think we beat it. I beat the graphic, but it doesn't even matter because y'all already know what to do. You know, hey, we talk about queer black media every single week. We do interviews. We watch all kinds of content, not just TV shows, but movies, films and plays, and it's just so much stuff. So if you're into that and love having these conversations, go ahead and subscribe. Support the channel, y'all.
And if you don't subscribe, it pretty much means you don't support queer black women.
And that is racist.
And wrong.
So we're going to get into it. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. All right, y'all. So, yeah, I don't know if you have finished watching season 2 of Euphoria. It is over, but you can stream it on HBO. Mm-hmm. HBO Max is how we tuned into Euphoria for season 1 and season 2. I had to do a little bit of catch up because the show actually started in like 2018.
Yeah. I watched it a couple years ago and then came back.
Yeah, and with this second season, there was so much conversation about it. I didn't even realize that there was a queer element to the show up until, way late in the game. But hey, look, we're here now. We're talking about it. And bada boom. So, I don't think you can ever be too late to the Euphoria party. Yeah. It's a really, really interesting show.
That may get a season 3.
I feel like it's definitely going to get a season 3.
Probably. Yeah.
There would be enough, crowd feedback, I think, to want a season 3. So,
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Euphoria on HBO, and we're really just going to focus on Rue.
Yes.
Because a lot happens. The story follows a group of teens that are living, experiencing life. It's a lot around addiction, sexuality, and coming of age issues with identity. So, but we're only going to focus on Rue.
Yeah.
Because Rue is the woman-loving woman character on the show.
That's it.
All right. So, favorite scenes or moments?
Okay, so I don't know if I should answer this first. I will.
Maybe because should I go first?
Yes.
Okay.
You should. That honestly answered it all.
All right. My favorite scenes are when Rue's character really does the dance sequences. Those are my favorites. Every time Zendaya dances, Zendaya is the actor who plays Rue. If you don't know anything about Euphoria, but Zendaya is just an incredible movement performer, I think. And whenever Rue's character is, going through a sequence where she's high or she's in a dream sequence or she's experiencing some anxiety or going back into the past, you will see these dance sequences. It was the finale for season 1, and then dance comes in again in season 2, and those things just always really touched me. I think the movement is incredible. The emotion attached to it comes through. The choreography is gorgeous. So whomever they brought in to choreograph those scenes, I was a fan. And yeah, those were my favorite Rue moments. Because Rue's complex, y'all. It's a lot going on.
Very complex. Very complex. And I'm glad you went first. I mean, here we go. Yeah, I think it was difficult for me to have favorite moments with Rue at all. Kind of like you spoke to the fact that this is a teen drama where we're going into addiction. I mean, and she's really battling addiction really hard. And we learn, early on that it's not just, she's not addicted just because of her depression.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rue's character is a very complex one. Her dad has passed, so that's from cancer. Yeah. So she really, what I was getting at, she really, really fell off the beam after.
Well, before that, because she started taking his drugs.
She was taking his drugs, but I think it just went, the death of her father contributed to just
the spiral
even deeper in this spiral. So,
and she's always been a child who suffered from anxiety, bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And probably some other things that were going on in childhood. So always a kid who maybe has been suggested to be medicated, and then add the death of a parent to that, and you get a pretty wild mixture of things to cope with.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think my favorite moments were more artistic moments in the show, kind of like what you spoke to, but favorite moments with Rue, no, she really gets on my nerves the entire time. I'm entirely too sensitive for Rue's character. And hurt, honestly. I think, there are things in it that I feel like hit just too close to home in ways. And it's one thing when you can watch this show as entertainment and this has like, you don't relate. But I think it's another thing when you watch this show and it's like, this is real. And it's tough.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough. So I think the show is a good show.
Yeah.
But finding favorite moments with Rue, I don't know that I really have favorite moments with Rue.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take a chance and say, for the woman crush moment, you might not have much to say. I'd say the moment that I most admired Rue was when she was trying to care for Gia. When she was mostly sober and trying to look out for her little sister, she seemed to be a stand-up sister who was like, I'm not going to rat you out, but I don't want you to do these things. I do want to look out for you. I don't want you to repeat my mistakes. She can see, what influence she's had, and I can see her trying to correct it. But it's really hard for Rue to have admirable moments because so much of her energy is spent battling her addiction or leaning completely into it.
Yeah.
And I think Rue's mom really struggles with that too. Like knowing like this is my baby and I love her. But she also makes my life really complicated and difficult and doesn't let me even deal with my own grief and stress because I am constantly trying to make sure that you're okay. And it made me think about actually my admiration for her mom and any mom that's out there still trying to figure out and navigate how to help a kid who's dealing with like severe mental disorder, addiction, everything. That's devastating. And I don't know how you deal with that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much why Leslie's my woman crush. Like, I feel like I didn't even think of, like, I'm trying to think of that redemptive moment with Rue. I mean, maybe, like, at the end of season 2, when she's, like, the monologue is, like, and I didn't do drugs for the rest of my high school career, which may or may not have been, like, 2 weeks. But, like, I think Leslie was my woman crush. Because she, through all of this, I think, the levels to which we see her choose her child and love on her child, no matter what, was great. I think the way that it was portrayed, man, I do not have the actor's name with me right now.
We'll keep going. I'll find it.
Actually, I did write it down somewhere.
Okay.
I'm gonna find it. Leslie Bennett. Oh, her name is Leslie. That's great. So Leslie, I really love the moments that Leslie brought to it. I mean, just her acting and just her motherhood in the show. And in the end, when she just like decided, you know what? If you gonna kill yourself, sis, that's on you.
Really.
I can't, I can really only do so much. And I think that is even a strength.
Yeah, that's
that's
real. That was actually her strongest moment to me, to tell Rue, I'm gonna focus on Gia. Yeah. I have 2 daughters and I can only save one.
I mean, I think that was kind of bold. I don't know if I would have said that to her face, but I also think there's a realness to saying it to her face. Yeah. Like, look, I've really done all I can. You tore my house up. You've done everything. I don't know. I give it up to Leslie.
She was like taking one of those AA moments where like Rue's character had to like write a letter as if she were at her own funeral. The things that they make people do in these 12-step programs. And I feel like she was taking a note from that. Like, let me give you a harsh reality. I'm not trying anymore. I can't fight you the whole time.
Yeah.
I can't use my energy in that way and keep any of my family intact. So I'm gonna choose keeping it intact over keeping you. It's tough. That's tough. I'm sure it hurt her to say that.
Yeah, and Leslie kind of bad too. So
she's fine.
I'm gonna give
Super
it up
fine.
to Leslie. It's easy to make her the woman crush.
She's also single. Okay, as the character.
The character. I don't know what's happening with Leslie in real life, but boom, there's that. All right. So what can stay and what can go?
Okay, the mom can stay. The sponsor can stay. I love that the sponsor came in and saw Gia, the little sister, is getting left out in this equation. She's getting traumatized. Somebody needs to, just stop worrying about Rue. Rue gonna do what Rue's gonna do. Worry about this other kid here. So I really love the sponsor being there. The friendship, I think Rue kept having people who came back into her life and gave her chance after chance. And, in ways I think that was probably enabling, but in other ways it made sure that she didn't end up in even more dangerous situations than she did, even though she put herself in a lot of shitty places.
Yeah.
Like, when I think about Rue, I think about Shameless and the father on there, and where people end up if nobody is able to intervene. And I can totally see Rue just being like a walking train wreck, just kind of ruining things for everybody in the path. But okay, back to what can stay.
Hilarious.
Is the support that Rue does have. All of that can stay. I think even having more conversation or creating a story that talks about teen addiction and its relation to real life traumatic events that happen, like losing a parent, and then also things that you can't necessarily pin down, like being bipolar or having like a different brain chemical balance happening, or dealing with very severe depression and what that feels like. I like that they illuminated more what it is like to be so sad that you won't get out of the bed and use the bathroom. And what's really happening for a person in that is hard to understand, but happening nonetheless. So all of that can stay.
Yeah. I will. I'll give you that. I can receive that, but I feel like the only thing that I want to stay in this show is Rue's breakthrough. I would like to see if her story can progress outside of addiction, who she is. Can we experience her outside of addiction, really? And because I think that would come with its own battles, there's a whole lot of uphill climb to piecing your life back together. So I don't think that the story would be lost.
Yeah.
If we weren't dealing with Rue as a hard drug abuser. So I really hope that this moment stays, and if we do get a season 3, that we are able to see Rue blossom in different ways or experience different challenges. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Experience different challenges. And I will say, I think that the show, something that I did like about the show is that it does show us a lot of really tough situations, but in doing that, it kind of forces you to find the beauty in situations. Like, it makes you appreciate like those moments when family is there to support you.
Yeah.
Or like friends are there to pick you up and really ride or die,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do like that, and I think that can stay. If I think about what can go, yeah, I can't say it enough. I need just Rue to get her shit together. Like, I need something else. I don't know how many seasons I could watch of a person just unraveling.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, it's messed up because I feel like addiction is so complex. So there are people who will learn how to control their addiction, who will learn how to find ways to cope, get through it, change situations, get the support systems they need, get the drugs that actually help to restore some of the other chemistry that was happening in their brain before the addiction formed. And then there are people who are, from what I hear, addiction is always going to be like a lifelong illness and something that you have to constantly work toward. And that so much of addiction is attached to mental illness. And then she has these mental things that are happening that require a lot of consistent intervention and sometimes the use of drugs. So it's really like this cycle that I don't see ending. So I don't know what future seasons can hold, if we'll ever get to the point where Rue is good. But like you said, I think, finding other battles would be wonderful. I think also the community growing more conscious, just around recognizing what's happening. Like her family is so supportive, but her friend groups that are like knowing, hey, Rue is an addict and partying with her. All of the enabling that happens, or like people thinking like, well, I can do whatever I want around Rue, and she'll make her choice. And so I hope that future seasons maybe dig more into I don't want to say how the community can be more supportive, but I think just more insight into how a whole ecosystem actually can help or harm a person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So, where does this fit in this queer canon?
This is the meat. Okay. So, for me,
right.
It's a conundrum. One, I am always happy to have another queer character, another queer Black woman who is representing another form of life. This is, for me, not the life that I want to see from queer Black women, but I'm also hesitant to say that there's any one story that doesn't get to exist, because this is somebody's story. This is somebody who's biracial, living in a minimally diverse town, who is suffering from addiction and has had this traumatic loss in their life, and has this contentious relationship with their mother and can't seem to get it together, and also in love with the new trans girl in town. That's somebody's story for sure, somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but this isn't a story that brings me the mirrors that help me. And it's not something that brings me joy around queerness. It is something that helps me to think more about the role of drugs and alcohol and addiction in queer stories, because I think when I think about homelessness and the number of queer teens that are houseless or without mental health services or without support systems, and how they end up in these cycles of addiction, that does feel like a queer narrative, but not the queer narrative that I want to be entertained by.
Entertained. Yeah. Very operative word there. Like, I don't know. It doesn't give me those feels.
And I like the show. I'll say that. I do like the show. I really enjoy it,
I feel that. I don't think it's a bad show. I do think it's an entertaining show. But when I think about it in the terms or around our canon, in the queer canon of Woman Crush, it feels very much like, if this is the circle, it's like hanging off of the circle. It's very much like the LaCroix of our canon when it comes to, like, it's an essence of queerness and
that's so true,
and Blackness.
Yes,
but like, do we actually taste that flavor?
Yes. Okay, so let's get into it, because Rue has a girlfriend, briefly has a girlfriend, spends a lot of time crushing on this girl, but it's really unclear if Rue likes Jules or is using being with Jules as like a lifeline for herself, like something to deeply focus and really obsess over. And And then having sex with Jules, she's too high to really even enjoy sex, and maybe tinkering on being so deep in her addiction that she's like becoming asexual, and just kind of looking for connection over romance or satisfaction or anything like that. And so, yeah, how queer is Rue? We haven't met the real Rue yet, so we don't know.
I think that's a great way to say it. Like, we haven't met Rue, and I think if we were to ask Rue about Rue's identities, I wonder, like, what would come up. I think there would be so many more, like, questions, you know. Yeah, just the concept of identity, I think we don't really have an opportunity to explore the identities that we talk about in this show, like which I think is kind of interesting, because I don't think this is a household with black women in it, but in this household we never discuss blackness, and I don't think that every black household makes blackness a center of discussion. I don't think that that's constantly a talking point, but I think that it's never a talking point. I think the observing that it's not a talking point ever feels a little less authentic. Like,
that it never gets mentioned, not only at home, but not at school. And we know, like, high school is a place where your identity is such a big deal. Your identifiers will come up. Somebody is going to bring them up.
Yeah. And so I think that's where it feels inauthentic to me. That, and I don't think that I can understand a writer saying, look, I'm not going to take on every struggle. This struggle, the primary struggle, is Rue is an addict. Boom.
And the writer is formally an addict.
So it's like, I understand choosing to focus. But I also think that we lose something by including these identities, but not talking about the identity at all. You know what I mean? Like, because it would exist. It would come up at some point, you know?
I think we have to bring to this conversation who the writer is. So the writer is Sam Levinson, who is a white guy. And this story, Euphoria, is based on his some of his personal experiences with addiction as a teenager. So this is a white man who is now telling the story of a queer black woman. Now, I don't know how casting went. Like, if I know Zendaya likes to go out for roles that aren't necessarily written for queer black women. So the actor kind of maybe put these identifiers on the role, but this is season 2. So the writer also didn't have any reaction to who was cast. And for me, this brings up this question that I think has existed in the writing world for a long time, and that's who gets to tell what story. Should a white man be able to tell a story and have a queer black woman lead it? Can he tell that story? Does he have to bring these other things into it? Do you have to have a writer's room? We know it's best practice. We know it will make for a more authentic experience, but do you have to do that? And I think that question comes up when you have a show like Transparent, where you have somebody who is non-trans writing a trans character. There's a whole host of shows, so many shows about black people that were not written by black people, you know, and who gets to tell the stories? And what's the difference between telling a good story and an authentic story? And can you have one without the other? And I don't know, because I enjoy this show, and my instinct says you cannot have one without the other, and my other instinct says, what am I watching this show for?
I think that's a great point. One of the things I wanted to bring up in saying, you know, the quote that Zendaya has around not wanting to do roles that are written for black people, I think that's a really interesting take on life. While certain parts argument. I get you don't want to be pigeonholed, into something.
I thought it was she didn't want to take roles from more identifiably black women.
I don't know. Look, however it goes, I think. Okay, well, no, then that kind of changes what I'm about to say. So, see, why you take my whole argument out my mouth? Like,
well, for y'all, let's. So, I think that's where that comes from. Is that Zendaya has talked about how, I mean, we all know this, how in Hollywood, people who get cast as black women tend to be biracial women, light-skinned black women, particular hair textures that are super loose curls, all of this. So, you don't get women who are identifiably black playing black characters. And so she's like, I don't want to take up that space.
That was not what I heard about that. Now, I think that's so cool. That might be different. That's cool. And I'm not saying that that's not the truth. But what I got from it is that there is a type for so many roles that are written for black women. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'm not going to fall into that type. Like, I can play anything. I don't have to be a black woman. I can be X, Y, and Z. If I'm wrong on that, and I totally don't know what Zendaya, where her heart is, and I'm not even trying to say where her heart is. I'm not trying to judge where her heart's at. I don't know. But I didn't take it in that way. And I'm gonna just say this. It with the original understanding that I had, I just feel like this is still a role that's like, to me it's serving like Halle Berry losing Isaiah, Halle Berry Jungle Fever realness, where she's playing this, you're a black woman. I mean, the role that it is, I feel like it still can be tied to a stereotype of portrayals of black people. Mm-hmm. That's it. I think that there's, if you were trying, if the goal was to stay away from a certain type of character, I still feel like it just reminds me of to see black folk and queer folk in like really sad stories. Like, this is terrible. This is a really rough existence. Yeah. That just makes me sad, and I don't think that we shouldn't have stories that are sad. So I'm not saying that to say like black folk don't have real lives and real shit goes down. Keep real shit. But Zendaya and that argument, as I originally understood it, was just like, girl, why can't you take black roles? Like, why can't you take roles for black people? Like, why not?
I mean, I don't know. That wasn't my understand. That wasn't how I came across it. So yeah, I have a different quote, understanding of the context
in the comments, because yeah, that was how I heard that, and that was how I understood it, and that's where I was. So yeah.
Well, I think either way, is this a story in the queer canon? I think in ways it is. And I think it's in ways that for a story to be queer and black, it doesn't have to center your queerness or necessarily your blackness. But I think the part that's difficult is for any person who is queer and black, none of those things stop being center. There's no such thing as a center. There's just always these things that are moving around. All of your intersections are actually interacting and moving around and happening simultaneously, and nothing about your identity really goes away in any moment. It just kind of shifts and where the focus is, and it makes the show tough. It makes it tough to judge. I hope that for season 3 they do bring some, consultants at the very least into the room.
Yeah, because there is something to be said when you're in a black household and it feels like there's no voice of that identity and voice of what does it mean for Zendaya's character to be queer, versus just like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I'll also say too, I think my view of queerness is very much attached to my age. and where I am in the world. And I think younger people's attachments to queerness are far less boxed in, that it maybe you don't have to have any particular actions happen, you don't have to have any particular labels attached, you don't have to do anything to be queer but exist and have thoughts that people can't know. And I don't want to say that, you know, young people are making it so broad in that way, but I just think what matters to them about queer identity in a story is always going to be different than what matters to me, because you and I grew up at a time where there were not queer characters. And so if you were going to have a queer character, to really make them somebody who gave hope or showed what the true struggle is, and that identity got brought into it, felt more important. And I wonder how the audience has shifted and how a younger audience has reacted to Euphoria, and specifically Rue's character.
Oh, well, hey, I think it's very interesting. Zendaya's like personal existence and response to being gay, I think is an interesting story to witness outside of Euphoria, because people have questioned, but as far as we know, she dates dudes, period, and that's all we got. So yeah, what this show is and where it fits in the queer canon, like I said, it's serving me very much LaCroix realness. And yeah, it's black and queer just by the fact that it's black and queer.
Yeah.
You know, like, is that black and queer somewhere in it? Sure. Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what y'all thought, and
yeah, what you want to see from Euphoria if there's a season 3, or what you thought of the show. So yeah, tap in with us. And until next time,
peace.
Peace.